The subject of this is, I got the Model A now. Now what do I do? I put this together in a write-up, and it has been in the Model A news, I don't know, a few months ago, maybe a year ago. And so I thought I'd make a video of it. When I wrote it, I was thinking about a person who bought a Model A, wasn't sure what he got, he gets it home, what's the next thing he does, and that's what I tell you to do. You could apply this to the car before you buy it, and you might buy a better car that way. So I'll go through it, it's not long. And I'll try to show you the parts on the car I'm talking about. Depending on the condition, this could be a quick check or the start of a long process. Many cars are restored cosmetically. They spend all the time on the body and the paint and the interior, and they get it all pretty, and they completely ignore the underside. The brakes don't work. I assume the engine runs if it's a running car, but and it may have some safety issues, and that you don't need with a Model A. So I won't help you with the cosmetics. You can see what you get, but I will help you with the mechanicals. And as far as the engine goes, I assume you bought a car that runs, so we won't go into the engine. It either runs or it doesn't run. Certainly don't buy one that doesn't run and sound pretty good. There's no reason for the engine not to run good. There's plenty of engines around, and a Model A is not worth much if it doesn't run good. First, you have to make sure it's safe. So let's go through some of those things. It has to stop in a decent fashion, and the steering must be sound. Don't drive it over 10 miles an hour if the tires aren't good. If in doubt, ask someone who knows tires, but you don't want to have a tire failure on the rear of a Model A. It'll twist you around so fast, and if you're going fast, it's not a pretty scene. So make sure you have some tires on it. You can get tires a lot of places, and they're not expensive. Now, as far as the brakes go, the Model A is designed to be a rear skid system. Modern cars are front skid. The front wheels lock before the back do. But on a Model A, it was designed to skid the rear wheels first, and then the front wheels contribute to the braking. Check for slop in the rear brake lever bushing. Now I'll show you what that is. This is the arm that the rod pulls on when you depress the brake pedal. It pulls the rod forward. We're talking rear brakes here, and it pulls a lever. That lever is attached to a shaft that goes through the backing plate, and it's those bushings I'm talking about. If there's any looseness in it at all, you got to replace it, and that's a big job. A lot of people neglect things like this, and you walk up to a car and you find the brake bushings just loose as can be, and you have to take everything apart, and it's not a small task. If you have somebody do it, it's kind of expensive. The parts you put in are pennies. They're just little tiny bushings. If you do get into the rear brakes, be sure to replace the emergency brake bushing. That's the little lever that pulls forward when you pull the emergency brake on, and that lever is attached to a shaft, and that shaft goes through some bushings through the backing plate. And by design, Henry did not lube this. I guess he lubed it when he built the car, but there's no way of lubing it afterwards, so most of those are worn out. Replace them if you're into the rear brakes. Now on the front brakes, pull off the front wheels, the front hubs, and that'll expose your bearings and things, but it'll also expose your backing plate. Clean things up and make sure everything moves as it should be and returns under the force of the shoe springs. The way you do that is you take the rods off so you can operate the lever by hand and see the brake shoes expanding and contracting, and you can see what's sloppy and what isn't. If the brake lever is not positioned with a slight tilt, and I'll show you that in a moment, it should be tilted forward just a few degrees. If that's not the case, then you have to put a pill They call it a pill, P-I-L-L. It's a little tiny dish-shaped piece of metal, maybe 3/8 of an inch in diameter, and that goes between the rod and the activator in the brakes. And all that does is make the rod a little bit longer and tilts that thing a little more forward. Now, to adjust the brakes, assuming you don't need a complete brake job or anything like that, you probably ought to get someone who knows what they're doing. The brake adjustment on a Model A can take all day by an expert and still not result in much of an adjustment. They're very touchy. If you get it to the point where they stop pretty good, quit playing with it. But I would recommend finding someone in the club, and I would recommend finding a Model A club and joining it. You're not talking about much money here, and you're talking about a lot of expertise that will be available to you. But find somebody else that'll help you adjust it, and I'll go through it a little bit in a little while. Now, in the steering, this is a major safety issue, and you've got to have good steering. And the first thing and most easy thing to do is to reach down under the rear of the left front fender, and grab the pitman arm. That's a vertical arm, maybe 7 or 8 inches long, going downward, and that attaches to the drag link that goes forward and causes the wheels to steer. Your steering gear makes this pitman arm go frontwards and backwards. Anyway, you grab the bottom of this pitman arm, and you're outside the car on the left side. Grab a hold of it, pull it toward you, and push it away from you. If there's any movement at all, you've got to replace the sector shaft bushings. Again, the bushings don't cost much. They're just little brass bushings. But it's a big job getting the gear out of the car and taking it apart, driving the old bushings out, putting new ones in. But don't buy a car where that thing is loose, because it'll just leak the grease out of the gear. The bushings really should be replaced. It'll cause slop in the steering wheel, and it won't be very much fun to drive it. Find a club member who knows this area of the car, and he can help you. And you might be able to find somebody who will do it for you, but you should learn how to be your own mechanic. Model A is pretty simple. Now, on that pitman arm, there's a pinch bolt up at the top that pinches it to the sector shaft coming out of the steering gear. That pinch bolt has got to be super tight. There can be no looseness there. If the pitman arm comes off of the sector shaft, you have no steering, and that'll ruin your whole day. So that joint has to be super tight. Take a peek at the drag link. That's the part that goes forward from the pitman arm, and the tie rod that goes from left wheel to right wheel. This keeps them in parallel. Take a good close look at those. Shake things around. Make sure that the ends are firmly attached to the balls that they attach to. And if there's any looseness there, you've got to take that apart and fix it. Now, those arms and the ends are usually all right. Now, for wiring, either hoist the vehicle. That's not easy to do, find a hoist, or lay under the car and look at every wire, everywhere it goes, and look for frayed wires. You don't need a short. A lot of the wires are probably going to be old, and if it goes across a sharp object, then tape it to protect it, because there's a lot of vibration with the Model A, and it can work through a wire pretty good if it's rubbing on a sharp surface. Also, you've got to check very closely on the big cable, electrical cable, going from the negative terminal of the battery forward to the starter post. Now, that carries all the current to drive the starter. And if that thing shorts out, there's no fuse involved or anything. It just is a very bad short, and you'll burn your car up, your house, or whatever. So that wire has to be protected. It can't touch the clutch pedal. It can't touch the brake pedal. You don't want it touching anything. And it does route in between the clutch and brake pedal, so don't neglect it. And certainly check it when you get your car. It's easy to fix. You just buy a little bracket maybe if you don't have a bracket in there, and you make sure that it's routed away from anything that moves. And get a good view of the wire, and have a friend push the clutch pedal all the way in, push the brake pedal down, make sure those arms and things don't come near the that big wire. Now this is the rod we're talking about. This rod pulls this lever forward, and this is the shaft that goes into the cam that expands your brake shoes and stops you. You got to pull this back and forth, and if there's any looseness in this bushing, you got to change it, because it's a lot of slop, and that's bad. Now the other shaft or lever is this one, and that's a little one, smaller one, and it goes up, and you can see where this attaches. Apparently I lost a pin and have not been using my right emergency brake, so I'll have to get a pin and cotter key and fix that. But this is probably going to be a loose bushing, and while you're in there working on this one, that's easy to replace also. Now here's some of the wiring you can check. Make sure it's not frayed and it's not rubbing against anything. And here's a cluster of wires that hopefully aren't touching anything that might hurt them. This is the pitman arm. This goes fore and aft, pushes this drag link, and if you push it forward, that turns the wheels left, or you pull it back, it turns the wheels right. This is the sector shaft coming out of your steering gear. This joint here is very critical. This is the pinch bolt I talked about. That's got to be super tight, because if this comes off of that, you don't have steering and probably another bad day. So that has to be tight. And the thing I mentioned to check, you grab it here, pull it toward you and push it away, and if there's any looseness, the looseness will be caused by that bushing inside the gear that's worn out. That has to be changed. That's the big job I talked about. Now this is the drag link going forward, and that goes to the left front wheel and steers the left front wheel. Then the tie rod steers the right wheel based on the left wheel's position. So it's not easy to see the tie rod. It's that member there, the upper one. I've got a snubber there. The guy before me put that on to keep the wheels from shimmying. Not sure how much good it does, but I don't have a shimmy. Now this is the front backing plate. The left front wheel backing plate. This shows the joint right here of the tie rod to that member. Up there it shows the drag link attaching to that member that steers the car. And the brake lever pushes a rod down through the center of the kingpin. It's running right through that axle shaft, and that rod is pushed down by a lever on top, and that pushes a wedge down that expands the brake shoes, and it's in there you would put the pill. You can get somebody to help you put the pill in. It's not that hard. It looks bad from here, but once you get the drum off, it's pretty straightforward. Now this is the lever that should be slanted toward me a few degrees, and that, when you push on the pedal, that pulls that rearward, and that rotates a shaft in here, and that pushes a pin down that and at the bottom of that pin is where the pill goes. But you want this lever pointing a little bit toward the front of car so that it has a good bite. When you push on the brake pedal, it will apply the brakes better. Wow, I'm getting too old to crawl under that car like that, and now I've got to go fix that pin I noticed had fallen out. But on the brake adjustment, basically what I do, well, first of all, you should get Les Andrews' Mechanic's Handbook for the Model A. It's about 35 bucks. A lot of places sell it, Snyder's and whoever. You can even get it from Mark, but we all have that book and we use it a lot. It's a great book. It's the one with the red cover. That's the only one I like. Now, what I do is I jack up all four wheels and I make a piece of wood with some steps in it, a little stair step, and the back of the wood goes by the front seat, and the front and that notched area goes to the brake pedal, and the first notch pushes the brake pedal down 1 inch. The successive notches pushes it down a ½ inch each time, and the procedure calls for I think it's when you push it down the first inch, the rear wheels start to come on, so you can feel a little drag back there, because all four wheels are off the ground now, so you can spin them. And then you go another ½ inch, and they get firmer, and another ½ inch, and I don't know, somewhere they lock up. And then after that, or not after they lock up, but after they start being applied, the front brakes start coming on. So you've got rod lengths to play with, and a lot of people say don't play with the rod lengths, set them to 1 length. It's never worked for me. Sometimes I'm forced to adjust the rod lengths, and then you adjust the star wheel for the brake adjustment. And that's all in the book, and you can figure that out. Now, while I've got you, I want to stress one small, simple point. Get yourself a small book like this, little book. They cost about $1, and make some notes in it. I start off with the book, how much I paid for the car, when I got it, what the mileage was, and so forth. Every time you do anything to your car, change the plugs, adjust the points, change the points, clean the plugs, add oil to your transmission. Whenever you do anything like that, or add oil to the gearbox, the steering gear, or you change oil, you need to write this down with the mileage and the date, whenever you do anything to your car. Keep the little book in the car, so when you do something to the car, you can write it down. Over time, you'll have a nice record of your car. You'll know when the last time you changed oil, how long the points have been in there, and your mileage. So, and if you have more than one car, it is an absolute must, because you'll get them all mixed up. You won't remember when you changed oil in one car or when you did something to the other. So that's very important, and it's easy to do. You're just documenting what you do to the car. I hope all this helps.